George, do you think vampires are bisexual?
Can't say I've ever thought about it, Joe.
I know this movie, in so much as the men express any sexuality, it is 100% hetero, but I'm sorry, the moment you start sucking the blood out of someone's neck like it was a Capri Sun, that's erotic. I don't care how much blood you add to the scene.
What's your point?
My point is, I think the average depiction of vampires as good-looking people who seduce you so they can drink your blood is inherently sexual, and it's a shame this film is afraid to explore this. It seems to me, if any creatures would swing both ways, it would be vampires. It makes sense.
Oh, it does. And what other fictional beings' sex lives do you have thoughts on?
I'm pretty sure Frankenstein would be into necrophilia. No way that dude wouldn't be all up in people's business while they laid there in a casket. He's littering around corpses all day. Some of them have got to be hot.
You mean Frankenstein's monster?
No, I mean Dr. Frankenstein. The man was an obvious freak. Frankenstein's monster, he would be into edging and electrical masochism.
I see you've really done your homework.
I'm pretty sure Batman was into pegging.
That's interesting, since we've seen how many Batman movies for the show? And you never once sprung that bit of knowledge on me.
You know, it just occurred to me.
Well, that was all very insightful. Can we start the show now?
1 minute. I want to put this out there to the listener. Those of you who are familiar with the rumors around Danny Thomas and glass coffee tables, what fictional character do you think will be totally into that? I've always suspected Santa Claus, but let us know what you think. Welcome to Does This Still Work? The podcast looks at movies and asks, does this still work? I'm Joe Dixon.
And I'm George Romaka. And today we're discussing Blade from 1998 and some historical context. First, podcasty stuff. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com, on Facebook, Letterboxd, and on our YouTube channel. Joe is on Blue Sky at joedixon.bsky.social. Please tell your friends about us. Even the ones who used to be in a relationship with you who just won't fucking let it go. And leave 5-star ratings everywhere. You can pick what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/DTSWpod. Now, Joe, take us back to 1998.
And that's the way it was.
Folks, as you know, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. However, on this podcast, history really can repeat itself in the sense that it's entirely possible to repeat a story when you've covered that year previously. Now, there are some things that did happen in Los Angeles in 1998 that I have yet to cover, but they are so far from having anything to do with a movie where vampires are real. So, rather than try and fit a square news peg into a round hole, for this History Corner, I'm going to discuss some random facts about the movie Blade. I'm going to thank Wikipedia and the folks at Screen Rant for this information.
Thank you, Wikipedia and Screen Rant.
Thank you indeed. According to Wikipedia, this whole thing started out as a Western set in Mexico and starring Richard Roundtree. For those of you too young to know, Richard Roundtree became famous playing Shaft, the first or one of the first black action heroes. Eventually, the project evolved into the movie we see now. But before that would happen, LL Cool J, Denzel Washington, and Lawrence Fishburne were considered for the role of Blade. And at one point, the studio even asked if Blade could be white. George, do you think any of those casting choices would have altered this movie?
Only in the sense that one joke that I make in the summary would have to be different.
What do you mean?
We'll get there.
Okay. I think it probably... LL Cool J, at least to me, reads younger than all the other guys, so he would have been a very interesting Blade. Denzel Washington, is good at any role. I just don't know if... I see him as that sort of vampire type. Lawrence Fishburne, always good in sci-fi. But yeah, I like Wesley Snipes in this role.
Okay.
Now, the creator of Blade, Marvin Wolfman, unsuccessfully sued Marvel and New Line Cinema for $35 million after the release of the film. But as with most comic book writers of his era, his contract gave all power of this creation to the comic book company. He, along with artist Gene Colan, received a based on characters created by credit in this film. This is a common story. Guy creates comic book characters, and years later, the thing is made into a movie or TV show, and he's screwed out of the profits. What people don't realize is that back in the day, nobody seriously thought there would be big money in comic books. These were just jobs you did for some cash. Who would have guessed characters you created 50 years ago would still be around and making money?
Who'd have thunk it?
Indeed. And this wasn't just true of comic books. Any number of old TV shows and movies have been destroyed over the years because there was no internet or cable channels dedicated to old media, so they would destroy them or tape over them like over live shows to save money. That's what happened to The Night Show. Old episodes were taped over because they thought nobody was ever going to see this episode again. Because there was no internet. So there was no tape to put this stuff on to send out to people. So it was like, just destroyed. Well, no one will ever see it. Jordan, are you familiar with this sort of thing?
I've heard of it here and there, yeah.
I think one of the worst times it happened was in the 70s when the film industry went broke and they were doing everything to save money. And like I said, they would tape over things. They would destroy stuff. They'd sell it off. It was like really sad. We had no idea about archival stuff. They're like, screw it. Just get rid of it. According to Screen Rant, and I'm quoting now, Blade saved Marvel movies and the superhero genre. It may be hard to imagine a time before the MCU dominated pop culture as a whole, but it used to be that Marvel movies and superhero cinema in general were seen as box office poison. Blade wasn't just Marvel's first critical and financial success in cinemas, then best known for Howard the Duck, but also the first real superhero success after disasters like Batman and Robin and Steel. If it weren't for Blade, studios would never have gambled on Spider-Man and X-Men, effectively killing the comic movie boom before it even began. End quote. Stan Lee, and for some reason Michael Jackson, were supposed to have cameos in this movie, but it never made it into the final project. Can you imagine Michael Jackson playing a vampire, sucking the life out of children? Oh, wait, never mind.
Oh.
Okay, George, tell us about Blade.
After that? All right.
I set it up for you.
This is directed by Stephen Norrington,
whose work I've seen in The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, a very bad movie. It was written by David S. Goyer, whose work George and I have both seen in Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises, and Man of Steel. And I've seen his writing in Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. A very bad movie.
So I've heard. Blurbs. IMDb says, a half-vampire, half-mortal man becomes a protector of the mortal race while slaying evil vampires.
Do you think he picked the wrong side in that battle? I mean, honestly, is the human race really worth saving?
Maybe not, but not for any reasons that this movie gives. YouTube says, Wesley Snipes plays a half-mortal, half-immortal charged with ridding the earth of a race of vampires led by Stephen Dorff in this action-packed blockbuster. Gotta love when they mix up the fucking actors and the roles that they play. Whatever. Only reason I rented it on YouTube is so that I could watch it at 2x speed when I was writing the summary.
Uh-huh. You know Stephen Dorff's most famous role, right? Which apparently neither one of us has seen.
Nope.
He's Chucky.
Oh.
He voices Chucky. Apparently he's retired from acting, and the only thing he'll do voice for Chucky, and that's it.
Well.
I hope that's correct. I may be wrong.
Yeah. I mean,
that sounds right.
We don't claim to know everything. So, the film opens in 1967 Los Angeles in a hospital.
Year of my birth.
Yeah.
I was so happy when I saw that on the screen. Oh, that's right. So, I guess Blade and I are the same age.
Yep. He just ages slower than you do.
He does. But we both look goddamn good.
Yep. We watch a black woman die during childbirth after doctors describe her as having been bitten by some kind of animal. That woman is Vanessa Brooks. And Vanessa is played by Sana Lathan. For the show, we've seen her in Love and Basketball and Brown Sugar, and I've seen her in Alien vs. Predator. And why does she get a credit? Well, this is a movie about fucking vampires, so you can't assume that anybody who dies on screen with bites on their neck is going to stay that way.
Yeah, indeed.
We get some title cards over time lapses of LA, arriving at one last card for now.
Which I know you hate.
I hate that so much.
But back then it was now.
Back then it was now. We see a hot chick driving a car with some dude bro chud in the passenger seat, hoping desperately to get laid. The hot chick encourages this, being super handsy. They arrive at their destination, a meat packing plant. No double entendre there. As they walk through, her demeanor becomes less playful while the chud starts getting uneasy. Rounding a corner, she speaks some Slavic stuff down a hallway to a bouncer, then kisses the chud. The bouncer opens a door to a nightclub, where dozens of bodies writhe to generic techno music. The hot chick starts dancing with another chick who shoves the chud to the ground. When he gets up, the overhead sprinklers rain blood on the crowd. This terrifies him and sets the crowd into a frenzy. They reveal that they're vampires and start beating the guy up as he crawls towards the exit.
This all seems rather a long way to just get one body. I mean, Jesus, you think they have more than one human in there at the very least.
Right? He stops at the blood-free boots of a newcomer. The crowd identifies as Blade, the Daywalker.
Blade is played by Wesley Snipes. For the show, we've seen him in White Men Can't Jump, To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, and Waiting to Exhale. And I've seen him in Dollarite Is My Name, New Jack City, Deadpool and Wolverine, Coming to America 2, Chirac, Bunny Train, Jungle Fever, and Mo Better Blues. Yes, I've seen a lot of this man's movies.
Yes, you have. And I've seen him in Major League, Rising Sun, and Demolition Man.
Rising Sun's the one he's with Sean Connery, right?
Yes, it is. The chud scurries out of the way and a battle commences. Blade's arsenal includes a katana, guns that shoot silver hollow point bullets laced with garlic, a garrote wire, and a shotgun firing silver stakes. Dozens of vamps die before he's squared off against Quinn, the right-hand vamp of the movie's big baddie. Blade ends up staking him to a wall and lighting him on fire. The cops show up, finding only a burning, still screaming Quinn and a blood-soaked but still alive chud. Quinn is played by Donal Logg. We've seen him for the show in Jerry Maguire.
And I've seen him in The Tale of Steve. In fact, I think that was his first movie.
I've seen him in The Patriot.
Now, that whole scene when they're like, Blade shows up, everyone's terrified, and he's just chopping everybody up. Big question. Wouldn't they already suspect that's what's going to happen since they know this guy's out to kill them? Maybe don't gather in large groups where it makes it possible for them to get all of you so easily.
Well, I mean, that's the point that the Vampire Council is going to make in a little while.
That's true, yes.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it doesn't get through to the head guy, whatever his name is, our head villain.
Yeah. Quinn's smoking body is brought to the hospital for autopsy. One of the coroners, Craig, brings a blood sample to the night shift hematologist? Do those exist?
Beats me.
Anyway, that last one is Dr. Karen Jensen.
The red blood cells are biconvex, which is impossible.
Look at the polys, are binucleated.
Karen is played by Mbushi Wright.
By the way, was that real English or was that something the writers made up?
Well, Joe, sure, whatever. The builders of this world will play fast and loose while trying to sound science-y right up until that makes absolutely no sense anymore, but it will kind of pay off again later.
Ah, gotcha.
I literally answered that question in the script.
Did. And basically, what you're saying is because the script says so.
Yep.
That's why most of the stuff happened in this movie. Because we won't have a movie if we don't have this.
Karen's curiosity is piqued, despite this also being a transparent attempt by Curtis to have yet another why aren't we a couple anymore talk. He doesn't get the closure he's looking for because Quinn sits up and uses him as a snack. Karen makes a run for it, but Quinn catches her in a hallway with other people, and he takes a bit more time with the way he bites her. That's long enough for Blade to walk in and break it up, lobbing one of Quinn's arms off in the process.
And then, of course, the question here is, motherfucker, where were you all this whole time? You could have got there earlier. He knew what was going to happen. He even says, I'm coming back to finish you off. How come he didn't get there when the body was lying there in the morgue? Just grab it then. Save everyone all this trouble.
Good question, Joe. Two cops show up and start shooting the black guy rather than the blackened guy, allowing Quinn to get away. And that's the joke that would have had to change if Blade was white.
That is true, yes.
Because the joke then would be, the cops show up and start shooting the white guy instead of the blackened guy. The hallway is now empty, but for Blade and Karen. She reaches up to him, triggering an impossible flashback memory to the day Blade was born.
Yes. How did he know what his mother did? He literally was just born. That's a hell of a memory that guy's got.
So he scoops her up and gets her into his 1968 Dodge Charger, somehow without either of them getting shot to pieces. He takes her back to his place. Home here is an abandoned factory where his old friend and father figure Whistler works as a combination weaponsmith, counselor, and geneticist. He questions Blade's judgment in bringing Karen there and says that if she starts turning to a vampire, they need to finish her off. Then he injects her with garlic. She spasms a bunch, and Whistler gives her a 50-50 chance of making it through the next night.
Whistler is played by Chris Christopherson, who we last saw for the podcast in Lone Star.
Then, in a darkened, windowless boardroom, a bunch of older vampires look at photos of Blade's carnage. They ask for the movie's big bad, Deacon Frost, to come in.
Deacon Frost is played by Stephen Dorff, who I've seen in I Shot Andy Warhol.
And I've seen as himself in Zoolander.
Oh, he played himself in that. Interesting. Okay.
A lot of people played themselves in Zoolander.
I never saw Zoolander. Didn't know that.
No, but every time it shows up in the credits, like the character that it just plays themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Except Ben Stiller, the star of Zoolander.
Right.
So he doesn't play himself.
We've only seen one movie with him in it, I think.
No, I think we've seen two. We've seen one. No, we've seen two, definitely. We've seen where he was a supporting character as the bad nursing. And the
yeah.
And then he was with a bad counselor in the other movie.
Yeah, okay. Frost is a much younger vampire, not a pureblood like the Elders. He was made into a vampire, whereas they were born as such. The Elders think Frost's nightclubs, like the meat factory, are drawing too much attention to their existence. Frost sees humans as cattle and thinks vampires should rule the world.
Now, at this point in the film, and this is definitely because the script says so, I even though I'd seen the movie before, I felt this way when I first saw it, and I felt that way again when I saw it again. Why don't they kill him? I thought for sure they would at least try and chop his head off or something, because you're giving it too much heat. And he's being really arrogant prick, too.
Yep.
It's like, why don't they, nothing. At first I thought, does he have something on them? Are they related somehow? Is that why? No. They just let him do whatever he wants.
They just tolerate his existence. Kind of like we do with conservatives. When we shouldn't.
But there's more of them than there is him. He's one dude.
That doesn't actually change what I said either.
I'm just saying.
Blade visits an herbalist shop and trades a big bag of watches for a serum that Whistler says he's building a resistance to. That serum keeps Blade from craving human blood. Karen wakes up and explores Blade's room, finding his meditation shrine and his mother's bus driver's operator license. She finds his arsenal and sees that his katana has a defense mechanism.
Because, of course.
Yep. She watches Whistler administer the serum to Blade while they talk about how useful she might be to them. They notice her and she makes a run for it. They catch her and give her a Blade Universe 101. Basically, silver, garlic, and ultraviolet light are your friends. Whistler gives her some vampire mace and advises her to get a gun to use on herself if she starts to turn. Blade drives her home.
Now, that whole scene there, it's so funny. She starts running to get away from them. And it's so weird they don't say to her, we have it locked. You're not going anywhere. It's not that you're running. Come over here. We'll tell you what's happening. It just seemed unnecessary to scare her like that.
They do cover that as a topic, though. She's like, so I'm not a prisoner here? They're like, no, we just have to, check you out first. You'll be...
Oh, no, I know they do say that. I'm just saying, but when if they know she's back there looking at them, and she starts making a run for it.
They're going to be like, hey, you don't have to run.
Yeah. It's fine.
In the Vampire Archives, Frost is using a computer to decipher ancient vampire glyphs. An elder vampire comes in to insult and slap him. That won't work out well for that elder vampire later.
Now that's another scene where I felt like they were related somehow. I thought, is that his dad? Is that why he doesn't kill him? Because he slaps him like it was, almost like it's his kid. Oh, you're my grown-up son and you're acting the fool. Slap.
Mm-hmm.
Deacon just takes it from him. I'm like, but no, that's not what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And at one point, you remember he rubs the guy's face very intimately
Yep.
What the hell was that?
I don't know, Joe. I didn't write the movie. As Karen heads up to her apartment, she sees tattoos on the necks of two people. Those mean that those are familiars, or humans that do vampires' bidding in the hopes of eventually being turned. In her apartment, a cop shows up and tries to kill her. Blade shows up and stops him, showing Karen that he is a familiar and naming the cop's master as Frost.
And apparently he was using her as bait. Again, he knew this was going to happen, and he lets it happen rather than does anything to prevent it. He knows the cop is there, so just take care of it before she gets there. Blade is a dick, is what I'm saying.
Yes, he is. They learn the cop is running blood from a vamp-owned blood bank. She stops Blade from shooting the guy, and he gets away. Then Blade gives Karen a talking to, and she decides to stick with him to stay alive long enough to find a cure that Blade is sure doesn't exist.
Now, let's pay attention to this, because Karen starts out this film oh, why are you doing this? You're excessive, this. Well, of course, she's completely correct. And then suddenly, well, we'll see later.
Mm-hmm. They stake out the cop's car, and at night follow him to a nightclub. He makes the cop show him the secret entrance in the freezer that leads down into the Vampire Archives. Why do vampires need archives? Because they own everything, that's why.
Actually, that doesn't make any sense.
I mean, if you own things, you need paperwork.
They're vampires. Why do they need paperwork if they're ancient religion? Go on. Go ahead.
I'm just
Answer
gonna-
that one, buddy.
I mean, their ancient religion gets results.
Apparently, they didn't think so. Only the young guy didn't think so.
So the cop makes his way back to Deacon to warn him about Blade. Deacon is disappointed and kills the cop. Then he sends Quinn and a small army to the archives under orders to bring Blade back alive.
Yes, we never see the cop again, so presumably he's dead, and you see him sucking the blood out of him. But as we've mentioned, you know, if you're gonna kill him by biting him, aren't you just? There's a possibility he'll just come back.
Always, Joe, always. Back at the archives, they encounter Pearl, a grotesquely obese vampire who's in charge of the archives and is helping Frost translate the ancient texts. Blade and Karen interrogate Pearl using a portable UV lamp to torture him. They learn that Frost is trying to awaken the ancient vampire blood god. Karen gets a little torture happy while Blade works to blow open a door. That door leads into a room where the pages of the ancient vampire Bible are being preserved. And yeah, right about here is where you were talking about, Karen gets a little bit happy with that UV light and torturing Pearl with it.
And the thing that, I'm not granted, yes, they're fictional characters, but nonetheless, the subtext here is torture works, which I'm not crazy about.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's not true.
It's not true, and we know where... I mean, this was made in 1998. We know where that's going to lead for this country, and we think torture is an acceptable thing.
Yep. So, this is all a trap, and before long, Blade and Karen are at the mercy of Quinn, who stakes Blade's shoulders like Blade did to him earlier. One of the vamps loses a hand for picking up Blade's katana. And just when hope seems lost, Whistler shows up, because he's been listening the whole time.
These guys love to come in at the last minute.
Yep. He blows a hole in the wall, then blows the archives, as he, Blade, and Karen escape in a subway tunnel. Quinn loses his other arm to Blade during that escape. And that had something that just fucking annoyed me.
What?
So there's this part where, like, Blade is fighting Quinn, and Karen gets knocked off the subway platform. She is under the subway platform as a train is going by. And he stops fighting Quinn to reach down and help her up. That is not the moment to do that, Blade. She is safe there. She's not going to get hit by the train. She's under the platform, and you have a vampire trying to kill you right the fuck now. Deal with that. She'll be fine until the train passes.
But then that would look unshrivelous, so whatever the word is.
Yeah. Back at home, Whistler gives Karen Blade's backstory and posits that something big is happening in the vampire world, and Frost is at the center of it. Then
How do you know this?
Because the script says so. Then she goes to talk to Blade, and they have a feelings talk. Not a feelings for each other talk, just a feelings like, oh, you are human, really? No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not.
Yeah, I guess she's... There's no love interest here. There clearly is no romantic subtext at all in this. I guess the only reason she is a she in the movie is that they didn't think it'd be cool for him to be rescuing a man.
Mm-hmm. Quinn is pissed about not having a hand again. Frost insists that they need Blade alive. Then Frost, Quinn, and a few others put on sunblock and take that one elder vampire out to a cliff to watch the sunrise. Between the sunblock and their full motorcycle outfits, the rogue vamps are fine. The elder burns, then explodes. Frost takes the elder's fangs to the Vampire Council and asks for 12 volunteers.
And again, like, why are they so passive about this? These guys have accumulated all this power, and you let this young punk take over? I don't get it.
Yep.
Also, I love the idea that sunblock will work on a vampire. I love the whole idea is they are not supposed to experience the sun during the day, regardless of whether the sun is literally on their skin or not.
Yep. Back at Blade's place, Karen has stolen some hospital equipment and figured out that they can use EDTA, an anticoagulant, to make vampires explode. While getting a blood sample from Blade, he reveals that Whistler is dying of cancer. He won't get a chance to do that.
No, he will not.
And later, Whistler figures out that Karen is turning into a vampire. She's still working on a cure, though.
Yeah, she is. Karen's not giving up.
Yeah. Blade heads downtown for more serum. Frost, wearing sunblock, calls to him from a nearby park and holds a young girl hostage. He says he knows all about Blade, all about Whistler, and all about their hideout. He offers a truce to Blade. Blade rejects the offer. Frost throws the girl into the street and makes a run for it. Blade saves the girl from being creamed by a city bus.
Now, that scene was just wild because, I'm sorry, that throw, when he threw the girl towards the street, that alone would have killed her. She certainly wasn't getting back up.
Yeah.
And yet, not only does Blade just pick her back up to save her from getting hit by the bus, she's fine. No injury. And people are still walking. People are just walking by. No reaction. Do you not just see this man throw this child into the street? I mean, I know it's Los Angeles, but come on.
Mm-hmm. Back at Blade's hideout, Karen whips up a custom gene therapy cure for her own vampirism, positing that it might not work on Blade because he was born that way. Then Frost, Quinn, and a small army show up, mortally wounding Whistler and making off with Karen. And then Blade shows up later. Now, I'm going to stop right there for a second. In the park, Deacon said, I know all about you, about Whistler, about your hideout, about your serum, everything. Then he runs away from Blade after Blade refuses a truce.
And you're going to ask, why did Blade immediately go to headquarters, or at least call Whistler and warn him?
Right?
Good question, George. I believe phones existed in 1998. Even he couldn't get there fast enough. Even he could give his brother a call there. I mean, not his brother's brother, but you know what I mean. Give the guy a call and go, hey, I think some more headed our way there in the headquarters that they know about.
Blade shows up later and gives Whistler a gun to kill himself with. He grabs all the weapons he can, some EDTA darts, and a motorcycle and heads off towards the finale. Frost reveals that Blade's blood is the key to bringing back the Blood God right before Blade takes out the first line of defenders. When he gets to Frost's bedroom, he's greeted by his own mother, who's been a vampire since the day he was born. Frost turned her, and she's been shtipping him ever since. Blade is way too easily distracted by this, allowing Frost and his men to subdue him.
Honestly, that was probably the most real part of the film, was like, oh, my mother's still alive, and she's fucking this guy. I can see why that would be distracting.
He and Karen are driven out to the desert, where an ancient vampire temple has been excavated. Frost gathers them, and his minions, and the 12 volunteer elders. He does some monologuing, mistaking Blade's EDTA darts for serum. Blade is taken to a top room where his mother straps him into a sarcophagus thing that, when closed, slits his wrist, allowing his blood to drip into a funnel.
You know, I have to say, I had a lot of problems with Wesley Snipes' performance in this, in the sense that he seems to be posing more than acting. But at least he doesn't show off his body. This is the only part of the film where he actually, hey, look at my abs. Mm-hmm. Whereas most action stars, we were seeing tons of scenes with him without his shirt. It's amazing. That's the only scene where he's shirtless.
Frost throws Karen into a pit with her ex-boyfriend and former co-worker, who is now a zombie, Craig. She escapes and frees Blade. Seeing that he's weakened, she tells him to feed on her, and to keep doing that until she should probably be dead, but she's not.
Yes, that's very strange.
Re-strengthened, he's able to fight and kill his mother.
Now, that whole scene, did it or did it not look like they were fucking?
It definitely looked like they were fucking.
Yeah, it's like, why are we doing this long scene of this? This is completely unnecessary. It looked really weird. I'm like, what? I don't understand. Why are we watching this? It doesn't need to last this long.
Sure didn't. This movie was a solid 2 hours long. Didn't have to be.
Did not have to be.
Downstairs, Frost's minions arrange the elders into a circle around the perimeter, while Frost stands in the middle. The blood drops onto Frost's head and into glyphs on the wall that cause flying skeletons to pop out of the elders. This is why I say all the sciencey shit gets forgotten. Because what is the even pseudoscientific explanation for that?
They're reverting back to their true form, because the blood god is there now.
Anyway, all those things enter Frost, slamming him up against the wall. Then Blade comes down and the final battle commences. Blade even manages to win, except that Frost is now a blood god, so slicing him in half doesn't work. What does work is pumping him full of EDTA darts. Because blood god. Duh.
Becomes big, bulky, and just explodes because he's got too much, whatever that is. What is it that's making them explode? It's like they're becoming big, bubbly things.
It's like something about the way that those blood cells were like joined to each other, so the anticoagulant causes them to separate, but it's an energetic reaction, so it makes it explodey.
Okay.
Safe once more, Blade turns down Karen's offer of a cure because there's more vampires to kill. We end the movie in Russia, setting the stage for Blade 2. The end.
The end. I never saw Blade 2, so I didn't know that's what that did. I just thought that was just the end of the movie. All right, my friend. Does this still work?
Sure. It's a vampire movie. It's hard to make a vampire movie not work because it's all made up bullshit to begin with. And this one at least has a comic book's worth of, like, world building in it. And it's a fairly successful comic book. Like, I poked a couple of holes in it, but you're not going to notice those, especially not on the first watch. Yeah. It's a pretty entertaining vampire movie. I wish it was funnier, to be honest.
yeah, there's no sense of humor in this picture whatsoever. That's one of the things missing from later Marvel movies. They tried to throw some jokes in, but this one, not so much. This is the first one. Doesn't even have Stan Lee in it. Yeah, I think it still works for an action MCU movie, the very first really solid hit. It obviously gets better as they go along. So yeah, it's adequate. I mean, I didn't love the movie. As I said, I think Wesley Snipes can act. I don't think he's doing much acting in this picture. I think he's doing more posing for a lot of his scenes. It's more like, hey, look, I'm such a badass and everybody's afraid of me. That gets tedious real fast. I'm not interested in that's always the problem I've had with Superman, is like he's unbeatable. So it's hard to get into him.
Yeah.
Where Blade's like, is he ever really in danger? He clearly can kick everybody's ass. So, like, I mean, Spider-Man's not going to really die, although they actually have killed Spider-Man. But he's not going to really die. But you still need some stakes. And I don't get the stakes. At no point.
Stakes.
Not just the stakes in the heart. At no point was I ever concerned that the good guys weren't going to win. There was never any. We knew Karen was going to be fine. We knew Blade was going to be fine. And we knew Whistler's probably going to die because somebody had to.
Yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, it's fine. No, not the worst action superhero movie I've ever seen, that's for sure. All right, my friend, what's up next?
Well, our next episode won't be next week, as this month is one of those 5-week months where we don't publish one in the last week. The next episode will drop on February 5th for the general public and February 4th for patrons. And that film is a Patron's Choice episode, and we will be talking about Misery from 1990. If you want to vote but are not a patron, you can fix that by becoming one at patreon.com/DTSWpod.
So I guess that's it for this episode. I'm Joe Dixon. Thanks for listening.
And I'm George Romaka. Thanks for listening indeed, because if a podcast drops and there's no one around to hear it, it's just another collection of ones and zeros that doesn't matter.
I don't think you understand. I mean, this dude is fucking bad. Like, he's like, you have 20 guys around him. I was there, man. He's got shit he throws at you. You like the sword.
Yeah, you got the sword.
Exactly.
Shit, yeah, you throw it in the air, catch it underneath.
Exactly.
Yeah, shut the fuck up.
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Romaka. The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others, because that still works.
Frankenstein's a monster. He would be into edging and electoral masochism. No, not electoral. He would be into electrical masochism. I'm into electoral masochism because of the way
this
I
whole
vote.
country's into electoral masochism. Dear Susan, for the past few Sundays, I've eaten brunch in one particular diner. Dear Susan, my boyfriend and I have been dating since college. Dear Susan, I find it laughable that you continue to advise single guys not to drop out of the dating scene.